Yeah. All right, we are live. Live. Do you actually want to move the camera up a little bit? Yeah, because there we go. Magic of the camera. Memorial Day weekend. We're still doing this. It's Memorial Day today. We're still doing this thing. There we go. Wow, we got people online already. Oh, already a like? What? I'm telling you, man, I am the like magnet. I am the like magnet. If you look at our latest video, let's see here. Let's get the how do I get the chat up?
Yeah.
I'm technologically in advanced.
Send feedback.
Yeah, is that it? No, it's not it.
Oh, the screen looks different than what it used to.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, guys, welcome. We already have a lot of people here. Actually, 2 likes. We got 2 likes. What? Feel free to put in your real estate investing questions in, guys. I'm here for you. You have me until noon. You know what? Let's go to 12:30 because last week we did have technical difficulties, and I did say that I was going to go 30 minutes extra. So if I need to, I will go the 30 minutes extra depending on the questions that you guys give me. But right now, I can't tell if the chat's being activated.
I'll read them to you.
So, you'll read it to me? Perfect. Do we have any questions so far? You guys like the mug? Deal closer. I know I mentioned this once or twice, but I love using our own merchandise to actually raise money. Because I'll wear like a Kwak Brothers deal closer hat, deal closer mug, right? And a lot of people will ask me, like, dude, like, what's a deal closer? You know, like, I love how you have your own, name. What is that? People will ask me, I've never seen that before. What is it exactly? And I'll just say, like, oh yeah, it's my, and it starts the conversation, right? It starts the conversation about my real estate investing business and my real estate, right? And so therefore I'm able to talk about it, and therefore I'm able to raise money, seek opportunities. And I've actually had instances where people were like, wow, that's a really cool mug. And they're like, oh, I got an uncle that wants to sell his house, so it's giving me opportunities. All right. Chris is giving me the okay sign on, we have questions.
We have a question from Irene.
We got a question from Irene. What's the question, Chris?
How to refi properties with a low ARV.
All right, so the question from Irene is how to refinance a property with the low ARV. So that's kind of like, how do I fly when I jump off a cliff? For me, it's like a double-ended question almost. Irene, if you actually want to provide more information, that'd be great. But I will answer the question based on what you have given me so far. So, Irene, I'm guessing and assuming that you're probably most alluding to the idea of you possibly buying a house, maybe rehabbing it. And when I hear ARV, I'm thinking about after repair value. So I think it's safe to say that I'm assuming that, or safe to assume that you most likely bought a property that needed some rehab work, and you rehabbed it, and maybe you are trying to rent it out, and maybe you're hoping that the ARV, the equity you make on the deal, will give you the ability to refinance. That totally depends on what market you are in. Now, if you have a low ARV or your ARV is not as high, that implies that your equity, right? You don't have as much equity in the property as you want it, so to speak. And I'm not a big advocate of pulling equity out of a deal or out of a property when you don't have a whole lot of equity to begin with in the first place. My philosophy is don't refinance unless your LTV is below 40%. Now, LTV means loan to value ratio, meaning that your loan is 40% or lower of the value of the property. For example, let's say the value of your property, or, let's say it's an apartment complex to make it interesting. Let's say the value of your apartment complex is $1 million. That's the value. I wouldn't refi unless the remaining balance on the loan is $400,000 or lower. And that's my thing, because if you actually look into how the banking works and, the concept of refinancing and concept of getting a loan with the bank, they actually have the ability to call your note due at any time. And I was actually talking to Chris about that this morning. And Chris was like, dude, I was reading this thing, right? Like I first came in the morning, right? And Chris is smiling at me right now because he knows. And he was like, dude, I didn't know banks could just like pull notes out like that. I was like, yeah, absolutely. That's what happened a lot in 2008. I was actually talking to one of my networks in Wells Fargo, and he actually said, and he's pretty higher up, right? Like he's very high up in the Wells Fargo chain. And he was saying, like, dude, we had to stop putting out foreclosure signs in the houses because the amount of foreclosure signs that we would have to put out, it would have scared people. Like it would have literally scared people the amount. So we had to stop doing it because it would. I mean, the amount, like, it was just make a neighborhood look awful. So to kind of answer your question, Irene, I wouldn't do it unless you have 40% or lower LTV for a lot of reasons. Just because for banks, their most top priority is risk mitigation and the low risk assessment. So whenever you have a situation where you have very low equity positioning in a property, for a bank, that's a very low risk assessment. It means that you're very high risk because you don't have as much skin in the game as they would hope. So Irene, hope that answers your question. Do you have any more?
Yeah, we got another one from, I believe it's pronounced Gaia.
Okay.
So assuming that there's a market crash coming soon, um, what is better for market timing? Buying a rental house now at a high price, low interest, or is it better 2 years from now, low price?
Okay, so I think the question was, to repeat the question, Gaia, right, was his name. He was asking a question referring to the recession, right? The market crash, ultimately market cycles. And he was asking, would I rather buy a house now with low interest rate, or would I buy in the future, with the low price? So to kind of answer your question, I'll tell you what I'm doing, but first let me tell you what a lot of other people are doing. So equity residential, right? If you guys know a lot of big entrepreneurs in the real estate investing space, you guys will probably know the name Sam Zell. And Sam Zell is a real estate entrepreneur, a real estate mogul, so to speak. He's a billionaire in real estate. And he actually got his start in the Midwest, right? Got his start in Chicago. And what I really like about him is he is very successful. He was very successful because he knew how to read the markets. He knew how to go right when everybody was going left. And he was actually the guy who sold like 25% of his apartment complex portfolio on November of 2015. Let me tell you why that's so significant. It's because in December of 2015, the Federal Reserve increased their interest rate for the very first time in a long time. Now, when the Federal Reserve increases their interest rate, that tends to lower the value of your apartment complex because the money gets more expensive. It drives down demand. So he sold it literally a month before that happened. Really smart guy. Well, guess what he's doing right now? He is literally acquiring and building up his liquidity more than ever. So he can take advantage of the opportunities 2-3 years from now. Same thing with Warren Buffett, right? His company, Berkshire Hathaway, they've just now broken their own company record for the amount of liquidity that they have stocked in their company, right? In their organization. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you when, the billionaire moguls, the investing moguls, the people that really control and dictate the market, what does that say about us, right? When they are storing up cash to the billions and to the hundreds of billions, right? What does that say about us? What should we do? We should probably duplicate that process. That should probably at least tell you something about what's going on in the market. And that's actually what I'm doing, in terms of buy and hold. Unless it's a very special strategy that I know I'm going to cash flow a whole lot on. I am very well aware of the fact that, everybody and their brother wants to get into real estate investing right now. And what does that mean, right? It means there's a lot of demand. Whenever there's a lot of demand, the value of the supply tends to go up. And in this case, the demand is us as real estate investors. There's a lot of real estate investors right now that want to get into the business. Therefore, it decreases the value of the supply, which is available deals out there. So for me, I'm actually not buying apartment complexes. But to answer your question, guys, I would wait. And that's just my personal opinion. And that's backed by a lot of people in the real estate game. I would wait because, yeah, interest rates are low right now. But if you find ways to acquire buildings creatively, you'll be able to enjoy both low interest rates and low value in real estate. So hopefully that answers your question. We got another one.
We got a question from Frank on Facebook.
Frank, all right.
He's asking, he's new to real estate investing. There's so many different avenues of how to get into real estate. How do you know which one's the best avenue based on today's market?
Awesome. Wow, that's a great question. So thank you, Frank from Facebook, cousin to Jake from State Farm. Frank was asking the question, and this is actually a really good question. This is probably one of my most favorite questions that I've ever had in a Q&A because it actually talks about something that I think is really important. So Frank from Facebook asked, there's a lot of different avenues. And Frank also mentioned that he's a newbie. He's just starting out, which is awesome. That's fantastic. But he mentioned that there's a lot of different avenues that we can go in terms of making money in real estate. And I'm assuming we're talking about different strategies such as fix and flip, buy and hold, multifamily, right? There's nightly rentals now. And he was asking, based on today's market, what's the best avenue for us to go? So if we observe, right, what the local market is, and by the way, guys, Frank from Facebook, thank you, because you just nailed my, philosophy on investing like on the head. That's actually my main philosophy when it comes to investing. I'm not a fix and flipper, guys. I'm not an apartment guy. I'm not a buy and hold guy. I'm not an Airbnb guy. I'm a real estate entrepreneur, and I do the strategy based on what the market tells me. And that's what I think everybody should do. And based on who I've seen be really successful in this game, they share that philosophy. So to answer your question, Frank, what should you do? What should we ultimately do based on what's going on in today's market? I'll tell you what I think you shouldn't do. I think you shouldn't buy on-market apartment complex deals. Um, I also think you should avoid doing fix and flips in high tax rate states such as Illinois, my home state of Illinois, California, New York. Now, I'm not saying that a deal there is impossible, but I love the path of least resistance and also the path less traveled. The combination of those two things, for me, that's a winner. That's a winner in my book. If you got those two things where it's the path of least resistance and it's also the path least traveled, that's where I think you should go. Now, having said that, what are those things? What is the path of least resistance and the path most less traveled right now? I think it's pocket markets. I think whenever real estate investing gets really hot, certain markets where everybody talks about, those kind of inflate with investors. To kind of give you an example, a lot of real estate investors, especially foreign money, and that's the biggest player right now in the whole world of real estate investing, is the amount of foreign money that's investing into our real estate. I think places like Texas, Florida, some places in the East Coast, I think those places are being blown up with a lot of money in general. So for me, it's not a matter in terms of what avenue. It's not a matter of the strategy, but also where. Because right now I'm doing fix and flips in places where nobody else is doing fix and flips, and I'm making a lot of money. I'm getting $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 more than what our asking price is. Like we listed on the market for $250, and we're getting $275 as our offer. There's places where you can do that. So I would not only study the avenues, study the local markets, where I like to call, your pocket markets. And number three, study the financing of how people are buying real estate in those local places. So where I'm doing my fix and flips, it's an FHA hotspot, right? Meaning you have a lot of people that's my age buying their house for the first time, and they're only putting 3% down. Well, in a scenario where the financing is super accessible and it's not as demanding, you're going to have a driving price. You're going to have and therefore it's really beneficial for you to be a seller. So a couple of avenues that I'm doing right now is fix and flips in my pocket markets. Right now I'm doing nightly rentals, but I'm doing them in the places where the value of the houses are really low, but the income coming in is really high. So studying that supply and demand is absolutely key. And I'm also doing a lot of value add, but I'm buying portfolios. So I'm not necessarily buying individual properties one at a time. I'm buying portfolios, and I'm buying them from individuals who are in a distressed situation, and I'm doing a lot of value add with them. So thank you, Frank from Facebook. Hope that answers your question.
Stacy is building out her team for real estate,
Okay.
and she's not knowing like where to start, where to begin looking for the people.
Okay. Stacy, was that a YouTube comment?
That was on Facebook.
Facebook. Okay, perfect. So Stacy from Facebook asked, she's building her team, and I think the question was, kind of on the basis of how to get started with building the team. Okay, cool. Thank you, Stacy, for asking that question. And you actually alluded to what I think is the most important thing in real estate investing, which is the people. The people make and break your business. So I mean, we all know that statistic, right? Of most businesses fail in the first 3 to 5 years. And based on my observation, and I had the most utmost honor and pleasure of being able to travel around the country and meeting entrepreneurs, meeting real estate investors. And a lot of times I'll hear a lot of failure stories. I'll hear stories where it's like, well, I used to have this, I used to have that, I used to have a really successful business. And one of my favorite things to ask them is, well, what happened? Ultimately, why did you fail? What are some mistakes that you make so I can avoid them? And one of the most common things that I hear is it has things to do with partners. It has things to do with people. Whether it's, well, my partner and I, we got in a fight and or my partner ran away with the money, or whatever, or my realtor screwed me over, or my contractor screwed me over. It always had to do with people. And at the end of the day, business is about people. No matter what anybody says, right? It doesn't matter. Business is about people, and that's it. So, how do you get started? Well, Stacy, you're never gonna stop networking. I met a billionaire who told me never stop networking, and I never looked back since on that advice. You're never gonna stop networking. So, I think to answer your question in the best way possible will be to share what I do when I vet somebody new, whether it's a property manager, whether it's a partner, whoever it is. These are some questions that I ask myself, and I ask them on whether we should start a new relationship, a new business relationship or not. So number one, I ask myself, are we in a system where we're both financially incentivized to help each other out? And I mean, yeah, sure, you can get in business with your friend, with your best friend, with your cousin. In my case, with my brother, mom, dad, dog, whoever it is, right? You can be in business with whoever you want, right? But you always want to be asking, are they in a system? Are we in a position, both of us, where they are financially incentivized for them to help me out and help grow the business, make it a we project rather than a me project? Number two, do they care about me? Are they an individual who's going? Do they have good morals? Do they have good ethics? Even when no one's watching, are they going to do the right thing? And I'm sure you guys have your own ways to figure that out. And number three, what do other people say about them? So, whenever I get in business with somebody, I always ask three people that know the individual, that may know the individual, that may have connections to that individual, and I ask them, hey, what has been your experience with that person? Are they a good guy? Are they a good person? Do they treat people right? Do they follow through? Most importantly, do they do what they say they're going to do? So these are some questions that I ask myself, when it comes to a new partner. So thank you, Stacy, for that question.
Jonathan is asking, how will you lease options in a recession?
Okay, so Jonathan asked, how do I do lease options in a recession? So for those of you guys that don't know what a lease option is, you're basically, it says it in the title. Yeah, so it's a lease with an option to buy. So what you're doing is you're basically, as a seller, you're selling a contract. You're basically saying, hey, listen, this is an option contract where you have the first option to buy my property if I were to sell. Um, and the price, depending on how the lease option contract is structured, it could be you can buy it a year from now, you can buy it 2 years from now, you can buy it 3 years from now. I've seen lease option contracts go up to about 4 or 5. But it is really not beneficial for the seller the longer it is. Uh, so and also you could issue the price, right? So like I'll buy it a year from now at this price, this interest rate, right? And the buyer pays what's called a lease option fee or a lease option premium. Most lease option fees and premiums range between $500 to $2,000, especially if it's like a 1 or 2 lease option contract. But I think you're asking, was it John? So Jonathan was asking, along the basis of how do you do a lease option contract during a recession? Um, For you as a seller, I don't know if that'd be a good thing to do, because typically if you issue out the contract in the heart of the recession, typically prices can only go up from there, because you're kind of hitting at the valley of its value in terms of the property. So if you're a buyer, it may be beneficial for you to do a lease option, during at the heart of the recession if you're a buyer, because that way you can say, all right, I'll buy it at this price a year from now, and I'll give you $1,000 today for my ability and my right to be able to do that. With lease option contracts, this is where you definitely want to have an attorney, because lease options can get a little iffy in terms of he said, she said. So you really want to make sure that everything is notarized, everything is in writing, you have both party signatures, and you also want to have a plan for what you're planning on doing during that lease period. I know a good chunk of my friends do what's called a lease option, and they'll do a lease option, and during that time, right, during that year or 2 years they hold the lease, they'll put that property on a nightly rental platform, like an Airbnb. So they'll pay $1,000 to get that lease contract. And in this case, you want to do what's called a master lease option. So master lease um, is pretty much the same thing as a lease, but it gives you the ability to lease it out to someone else. It gives you the ability to do something else with it, to have somebody else live in the property or to rent it out, right? That'd be a master lease, between a master lease and just a regular standard lease. And so I got buddies who, again, they do a master lease option, where they'll pay $1,000 up front to master lease it for 1 or 2 years, and they'll buy the property in 2 years at this set price with these set terms. But during that 2 year period, right, they'll put it on Airbnb, and they'll make cash flow in between. So good question, John. Thanks for the question.
So a guy also said he's based in the UK and he has a house owned outright worth approximately 1 million. The bank will only lend him $220,000 based on his income. What can he do to draw out more money? Private lending? Question mark.
Yeah. So, Gaia, thanks for the question. So, banks operate pretty universally. And what I mean by that is they prioritize a lot of the same thing. So, they mitigate risk is the main thing. So, let me give you an example. So, somebody who is just starting out in real estate investing, if they went to the bank and they wanted to use the bank to finance an apartment complex because they wanted to buy an apartment building, they will most likely be getting the going commercial rate. So right now, in the United States, the going commercial rate for a commercial loan to buy an investment property is 5.5%. Now, if I were to go into a bank, they would give me most likely 4.5%, because not only am I more knowledgeable about real estate investing, but I also have more assets I have a lot of liquid, I have a lot of assets, I own a lot of real estate. I also have a lot of things that I could collateralize, and I overall have more experience. So therefore, it's less risk. It's less risk for the bank to give me a loan rather than somebody who's just starting out. In terms of refinancing, the banks treat it the same way. So if you're going in there and you tell them what you're planning on doing with the money, and that you're going to invest it, that you're going to um, put it towards something that's going to give you the money back, that you're going to leverage that debt, and you also start speaking some real estate investing terms, and you show them that you know your stuff, and also your debt to income ratio, because a lot of people don't know that banks actually prioritize that DTI above a lot of things, right? They actually prioritize that over your credit score, your debt to income ratio. And so these are things that you can do to pull more money out. But the main thing would be letting them know, like, hey, this is what I'm planning on using. I'm planning on leveraging this debt to get more cash flow. And the biggest worry, the reason why a bank might give you a high interest rate or not as much money in your refinance is because they're worried that you're not going to be able to pay it back. They want to mitigate that risk as much as they can, as much as they can. That's what they want to do. So I hope that answers your question, Gaia.
Bill from Facebook wants to know what are the best tax benefits associated with real estate investing.
All right, Bill from Facebook asked us, what is the best tax benefits associated to real estate investing? So Bill, I would encourage you to check out some of our other videos in which we actually interview CPAs and accountants. Because guys, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a tax professional, nor do I claim to be one. But right off the top of my head, the best tax advantages when it comes to real estate that I have personally experienced, that I have personally benefited from, is the depreciation. The depreciation from owning, buying, hold investment properties. It's also been losses that I've been showing on my Schedule E and or Form 8825. And I'm talking losses in terms of, I had to replace, a hot water tank, or I had to fix the roof, right? Or I had to repair the pipes that got burst because the water froze. So right off the gate, depreciation losses are the two main tax benefits that I could think of. Another thing is like 1031 exchanges, where if you want to sell your property but you don't want to pay the taxes on it, you can actually sell and buy a like property simultaneously to exchange the equity from one property to another without having to pay capital gain taxes or ordinary income tax.
Janice says she loves the channel. Thank you for everything that you guys do.
Janet?
Yeah.
Thank you, Janet. We love you too.
She said that she's been doing real estate for a little while now, and she's just starting to get a little bit more comfortable with everything.
Nice.
But she's really confused about the whole idea of after repair value and what that is.
Okay, so thank you, Janet, for the question. You actually asked a very fundamental question, which is good, because I'm a big believer in practicing your fundamentals daily. Whether it's sports, whether it's business, you should always be practicing and mastering your fundamentals. So Janet asked a question referring to the definition of an after repair value. And I think she was a little confused on it. If you want to tell me specifically what you're confused about, you're more than welcome to. And Chris, if you want to just raise your hand as soon as she gives an answer. But after repair value is basically how much that asset is worth after you repair it. So a lot of times ARV alludes to fix and flips. It doesn't really, unless you're fixing and flipping an apartment complex, it doesn't really allude to that. Or maybe you're fixing and holding. That's really the only scenarios where ARV would really make sense, because it's value of something after you repair it. If you are increasing the value by increasing the income, in that scenario, the term ARV would not apply, because you've increased the value of the property by increasing the rent, increasing the income, not by repairing it. So let's say you buy a single family house for $50,000, and you get a bid from a contractor. So you go to your contractor, you say, hey, how much would I need to spend here in terms of the repairs for me to be able to rent it out, for it to be rent ready? So, new carpet, new paint, new flooring, new cabinets, right? How much would it be? And let's say you bought the property for $50,000. The contractor gives you a bid for, let's say $60,000.
Her question is referring to how to determine what to charge for renters once she's done the repairs.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So in that case, you figure out what the after repair value is. And let's say in this scenario, it's 150. And then you basically would do your research based on, all right, comparing my condition of the property. So for newly developed single family houses or units, whatever it may be, what is the market rent? So you can do that by simply, going to, the obvious ones would be like Zillow, Redfin. I know another really good one is hotpads.com, in terms of just renting out. And what I like to do is I like to go on those sites, and, Rental Meter is a really good one too. But primarily I'll go on like Zillow or Hotpads, because I want to see the pictures. I want to see how the condition of my property stacks up against the condition of other properties in the area that are renting. And I'll see how much they're renting out for, and I'll typically rent it out for the same ballpark number. Now, if my unit has a little bit more amenities, or maybe it has a better walking score, maybe it's better location, maybe the overall outside condition of the property is a lot better. In that case, I'll go ahead and, increase the rent by a little bit. So yeah, typically that's what I'll do. Thanks for the question.
So Matt Smith, should someone start an LLC first or purchase a course when starting out?
That's tough. I would say course because my thing is always, the best investment you can make is the investment in your own head. And what you if you think about what you're doing in your when you're getting an LLC, or you're doing a sole prop. And typically when people just start out in their business, I always say get either a single member LLC or get a sole proprietorship. Typically, an S corp, I wouldn't recommend people get that unless you have a larger operation and you have a lot of partners, and you're planning on buying other LLCs and you're planning on using it as an umbrella S corporation. But if you think about what it is when you're buying an LLC and you're setting up an LLC and you're paying money, you're paying a CPA or you're an attorney to set that up. That's investing it in your business. I always say when you're first starting out, 90% of the time, I'm going to say invested in your own brain, invested in your ability, um, to make things happen. Invested in yourself. I don't think it's a secret that Warren Buffett always says the best in real estate you can invest in is the 6 inches between your ears. So I'd recommend buying a course. Now, if you're wondering what course to buy, you should buy my course. If you want to do that, go to thekwakbrothers.com/programs or thekwakbrothers.com/learn. And I say that because, listen, if I wasn't proud of what we put together, what I put together in terms of getting in the studio for countless of hours and prepping, and I'm a guy who's watched a lot of different real estate investing courses. Like, I bought a lot of real estate investing courses, and my course really is the culmination of my personal experience and what I learned from there, all kind of wrapped up into one. So I wouldn't be bringing it up if I wasn't really genuinely proud of what we put together. So we're launching our real estate investing program on June 11th, which actually is my birthday. We're releasing it on my birthday. And again, I wouldn't be bringing it up on this live feed if I wasn't genuinely proud of what we put together, of all the hours that I've been in the studio putting it for you guys, right? So thank you. Thank you for the question.
How do I start finding leads for my first deal?
How do I start finding leads for my first deal? So, who asked the question? Oh, it's just a generic. Oh, sweet. Well, whoever you are, thanks for asking the question. Don't be shy, right? We're a very close knit community. But how do you first start getting leads? So, something that I did in the beginning of my real estate investing career is I would do this thing called drive for dollars. So, whenever you start out, I always recommend trying to find off market deals because when you're going after on market deals, you're really competing with the people who have a lot of capital. You're competing with the people who've done this a lot more than a lot longer than you have, who've done more than you have, and overall just have more experience, and they know how to push the right buttons to get the right deals. So I always say do the off-market ones where it's just you and the seller. You're going mano y mano rather than trying to compete for the same property with 15, 16 other bidders. And what I used to do at first to get the off-market deals, to get that one-on-one scenario, is I used to do this thing called drive for dollars. What I would do is I would research my local market and I'd figure out what the best areas were. And I was looking into do multifamily and apartment complexes 3-4 years ago when I first started. So what I used to do is I used to research the best market, the best markets for rentals. And I also didn't want it to be somewhere in the ghetto. I want it to be at least somewhere decently nice where I can get, good bang for my buck. I can get a high rent for low value. And I used to drive around these neighborhoods. And if I saw a for rent sign, I would call the for rent sign, and I would basically call the for rent sign and say, "Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm a local real estate investor. I saw your for rent sign, but I wanted to ask if you'd actually be interested in selling the property." And I would do 4 hours probably 2 or 3 times a week when I first got started. And I would, the night before, what I would just kind of make my time more efficient and make obviously mileage more efficient, is the night before I would research specific areas, because in my experience, if you see one multifamily building and one apartment complex, like an 8 unit or a 9 unit, most likely around that area, there's a lot of other ones. So I would go on like Zillow, Redfin, Hot Pads, sometimes even Trulia, and I would try and find the units that were for rent, that were like the 4 units, 8 units, 24 units, right? And I would try and find that location, and I would, just make pit stops. And the night before, I would basically compile a list of like about 8 to 10 addresses, and I would basically say, all right, these are the places that I'm gonna hit. And I knew if I can get to that address, I'd be in a neighborhood full of multifamily and apartment complexes. And from there, it was just identifying, all right, I see the for rent signs. And if I was doing it at like early morning or at nighttime, what I would do is I would just take pictures of the for rent sign. And on a Saturday afternoon, at like, right, typically after I've had my lunch on Saturday, I would just, compile a list of all the phone numbers, and I would just knock out those calls. And again, I would typically have like a list of about, I remember I had a list of about 30, 40, yeah, 30, 40 phone numbers that I would just have on my list that I took a picture of. I'd write it down. I'd write down the address, and one by one, I would just knock out those calls. And out of the 10 people I called, I'd probably set up a meeting with 3, 4 people. And out of 10, I'd usually would get a deal, or I'd get it under contract 1 out of 10. So, it pays, right? So that's typically what I did at first to get leads for my real estate investing career. So good question. Really good question, by the way.
So Mark from Facebook, he'd love to give a testimony for your guys' debt-free program. He said it's one of the best programs that he's utilized with
Wow.
great content. And he's just wondering more about the real estate program that you're coming out with on June 11th. What exactly is it entailing? What part of the real estate industry?
Yeah, so Mark just asked us. Well, first off, thank you so much for your kind words, Mark, from Facebook. It really does mean a lot, because it means that what we're putting out, you guys are liking and you guys are enjoying, but most importantly, you guys are getting results from it. So, Mark, if you guys didn't hear, basically said that, and it feels weird coming out of my mouth, but Mark was saying it's one of the best programs that he's seen, that he really loves it. And he was actually wondering about our real estate investing program that's coming out on June 11th. And basically, what does it entail? What are we going to cover? So, yeah, I'll spend some time to kind of talk about it and talk about the program. So, what does it entail? Well, basically, what I've done is I did my best to put together a curriculum that for only $500, that everybody else is charging tens of thousands of dollars for. So for a lot of you guys that have looked at other real estate investing programs, you'll know that it's typically not cheap. That if you want like their highest package and you want the best information, you got to pay $20,000. You got to pay 40,000. You got to pay 70,000. And I'm not going to name names, but I think you guys know, between you and I, who we're talking about in terms of the institutions that teach real estate investing, that charge thousands and thousands of dollars. What I basically did is I took the best information that I've learned from every single one of those companies, and also most of my personal experiences. And what they're teaching, guys, is not a secret, right? It's not a secret. You could find the stuff, some of the stuff on YouTube, but in terms of like the high level stuff, um, I put it in our curriculum, and I also putting in my personal experiences, the things that I learned from doing, looking at hundreds and thousands of deals, and meeting with, traveling around the country, meeting real estate investors, hearing their story, the mistakes they made, the wins, the culmination, and basically everything that I've experienced in real estate investing. I'm putting it into one program, and we're only charging $497 when everybody else is charging tens of thousands of dollars. And based on based on a non-biased, no emotion viewpoint, if I were to stack up our education compared to the big boys out there that are charging 20 grand, 40 grand, 60 grand, I would argue that our program not only gets to the point, but it doesn't waste people's time. Because a lot of programs out there, they're doing 8-hour classes, 9-hour classes. And I don't know why they're promoting that. Like, they're making it seem like it's a good thing. Like, oh man, our classes are 8 hours long. Well, if you actually look into it, yeah, it's 8 hours, but there's only really an hour and a half of 2 hours of worth of content. Every single one of our classes, we're putting out 16 classes, all related to real estate investing. And every single one of our classes are 2 to 4 hours long, but they're 2 to 4 hours worth of content. And, this is literally me, like no BS, no stories, no talking about me for an hour. None of that. It's straight content, get to the point, 2 to 4 hours. And what we're talking about is we're talking about how to create passive income. One of the most common things that I've noticed in my journey as a real estate investor, especially people who are interested in real estate, they want to know how to quit their job. They want to know how to get how to get financial freedom. Um, they want to learn how to create passive income so they can get some of their time back. Those are the people that I mainly want to serve right now. I want to serve the people who, I want to serve Mr. and Mrs. Jones, who right now they're both working jobs. They got to put their kids in daycare. They're not spending as much time. They just want their freedom back. They want to be able to live their life the way they want to and not have to spend 8, 9 hours a day in work. And I relate, guys, because my girlfriend right now, my girlfriend Lisa, she spends 12 hours a day related to work related things, whether it's spending an hour to get ready, spending an hour in traffic, working for 8 hours, and they don't even pay for her lunch, and spending and driving an hour back, right? And it hurts me because I'm not able to spend as much time with her. And when I see people like that, it gives me this passion. It gives me this motivation to want to help them out. So for only $500, we're giving everything that people need to know about how to be financially free, how to create that passive income. And we're covering everything from how to raise millions of dollars in capital, how to analyze deals, how to buy apartment complexes. Matter of fact, we have 2 classes on how to buy multifamily and apartment complex buildings. We got a part 1 and part 2. And in those 2 classes, we're literally going to talk about everything: how to read the local economy, how to know when's the best time to buy, how to negotiate. We actually have a separate class for negotiations. Um, everything from seller financing, how to put that together, how to manage your own property. We literally have everything under the sun that people will need to create passive income and get financial freedom. And again, that's mainly who I want to serve first in our program. So thanks for your kind words, Mark. I really appreciate your shout out. If you want to do a testimonial, feel free to kind of just record it on your own. Maybe you record it on your phone. If you want to do a good testimonial, I would basically say, where you were before our program, what made you want to check us out, what our program did for you, and kind of your overall thoughts. So those 4 things. If you want to record it and email it to info@thekwakbrothers.com, man, we would really kindly appreciate it. And send us your mailing address. We'll give you one of these cups for free, just as a token of our appreciation. So again, thank you, Mark. That email is info at thekwakbrothers.com, TheKwakbrothers.com. If you want to send us your testimonial through that, we'd be greatly appreciated. So thank you again, Mark. Really love you. Lots of love here. Thank you again.
So Matt from earlier is asking if there's any podcasts that you'd recommend. He also says that your program sounds amazing, but he also knows of a free program called Propeller Academy. So I guess what's your take on Propeller Academy?
Yeah, I don't know who that is. And for me, my standpoint is I'm always very skeptical of free, because I always give like the analogy of, well, imagine if you were on, Craigslist and somebody offered a car for free. If you want to check it out, are you expecting that car to be a nice car or a bad car or something run down? I would say it's run down, because if typically if they're offering it for free, chances are there's some type of an upsell or something like that. I'm not saying, again, I don't know anything about this organization. I'm sure it's a great organization. I'm sure they cover a lot of things. But something that I wish people did more is I wish people would be more selective about who they choose to influence them. Because a lot of times people will just buy any course just to get information. I would encourage you to do your due diligence, especially if it's for free. If it's for free, I would encourage you to do your due diligence and be like, all right, like, is this good information? Is this things that I want to have occupy my mental real estate? And so I would kind of say that, kind of give you that heads up in terms of for that matter. But yeah, our real estate investing program, we charge a little bit because we know we've had the experience of, unless people buy it, unless they invest something into it, people aren't going to take it seriously. If it's for free, people are just going to use it, abuse it, not really pay attention because it has no value, right? You didn't exchange anything for it. You didn't exchange something that you value, which is money, to get it. Therefore, and for me, like, I'm always weary of people who want free stuff, because for me, it's a mindset thing. I want to work with the people who are willing to do the things that other people aren't willing to do. Kind of like an athlete, the athlete who just does the bare minimum of just go to practice, just do the things that the coach tells them to do. They're not a very good athlete, but if you got an athlete who wakes up at 5 a.m. in the morning every single day and does the things that nobody asked them to do and out hustles everyone, they're the athletes who are going to make it to the top level. They're the athletes that are going to strive, that are going to thrive, and they're going to be the elite. They're going to be that top 1%. They're the ones that are going to be getting that big money contract. So for me, real estate investing and success, it's the same thing. I want to work with the people who are willing to invest, who are willing to do the things that not everybody is willing to do. In terms of good podcasts, we put out great content on our YouTube channel. Somebody who I really think puts out great value, great content, is my friend Joe Fairless. So that's JoeFairless. And he's got a podcast called The Best Ever Real Estate Investing Podcast. And he's interviewed people like, Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Hawk. And he doesn't have a whole lot of subscribers. I think he only has about 3,000 subscribers. So feel free to go ahead and check his channel out. So shout out to Joe Fairless, really good guy. I know I've been on his show. He's been on our show. He's going to be on our show again this Wednesday at 2 p.m., I think. So I'm really excited. So stay tuned for that, guys. But out of a lot of different YouTube channels I check out, he has probably given the most amount of value and the highest level of content. All the other guys really kind of they water down their content. They kind of teach the basic stuff, which is not bad. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Those are really essential. But I'd say, if I'm going to be completely honest, Joe Fairless has done an outstanding job at putting out a lot of content that I think people don't talk about. So yeah, thank you for the question. Thank you for the statements, I guess. Yeah.
He said he completely agrees with you. The thing he was talking about was Propelio TV. He thinks you'd be great to go on it. And he loves the podcast. And then we have another question from Top Secret Bear.
Oh, wow. All right, here we go. Top Secret Bear.
Top Secret
Is it bear as in like the animal, or like
the animal?
A top secret bear?
Yeah.
Wow.
What types of real estate side hustles do you suggest for those starting out?
Yeah, so real estate side hustles for those starting out. First off, I want to say I'm not trying to put down any other program or academy at all. Listen, my goal, my motivation, my drive is that everybody gets access and the ability to be financially free. That everybody has, the opportunity, at least, because not everyone's going to take that opportunity. No, not everyone's going to work hard enough, and not everyone's going to take it seriously. But at least being given the opportunity, right? I want everybody to have the opportunity to learn real estate, be financially free, and create the life that they want. And, I don't care if it's me. I don't care if it's anybody else. If they're giving people the opportunity to do that, dude, awesome. Hats off, right? We're all on the same team in that case. In terms of the question of what real estate side hustles do I recommend people do, I know wholesaling is a really good side hustle if you want to just start out. Another really good one is getting paid for leads. So kind of driving for dollars and getting connected with real estate investors who who pay for off-market deals. Something that I've seen people do is, they'll go out, they'll call for rent signs, and they'll charge, like $100, $200 per off-market lead, or they'll charge $1,000 for 10 off-market leads, right? They'll bundle it, and that's something that they'll do. Another one that I've seen people do is in terms of like doing maintenance work on landlords' properties, managing. But if you want to manage, you have to have like a real estate license, so like that's really not a good side hustle. But yeah, I mean, I'd say that's a pretty good list. Like wholesaling, finding off-market deals and selling those leads. That's a really good one. I've seen people like raise money and then, create relationship, but I don't think that's going to do well under SEC regulation. So not going to recommend that on a live YouTube feed, because I definitely don't want, people knocking at my door. But yeah, I say wholesaling and off market leads. They're pretty good side hustles for you to get into, especially if you're just starting out.
So Stacy is moving out of her parents' home and she's looking to buy an investment as a property for her real estate portfolio.
Okay.
Would you recommend moving into your investment?
Yeah, I don't see why that's a bad thing. So the question was, Stacy is currently moving out of her house, which congratulations to you, Stacy, leaving the nest, right? And I'm probably gonna assume that Stacy is a younger individual. Um, Stacy asked the question, is it a good idea for me to live in my investment? Yeah, absolutely. I'm always an advocate of that. Obviously, it depends on the situation. Um, I think there's a way to use and abuse it, like anything else. Like I've seen individuals who like they'll buy a property through an FHA loan, they'll live in it, they'll move out and do the same thing over and over again. I think that's the dumbest thing on God's green earth, because you're putting yourself in a position where you're really stretching yourself out very thin and over leveraging yourself. And typically, the individuals who do that, they don't have the net worth, the bankability, the liquidity, or the positive DTI for them to go to a bank and refinance or get new financing, because I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much, but I think FHA is in a very nervous and scary position, especially if you pay attention to like government bonds and what's going on in the global economy, which has a lot to do with FHA. Uh, I think that's a very dangerous. But if you're doing it just once and you want to move into a 4 unit building and get residential financing or FHA financing, and you want to live in one of the units and rent the other three out, yeah, absolutely do it. I think that's a phenomenal thing to do, especially if you're young and you want to be able to build up a net worth, build up some liquidity, build up some principal. Yeah, absolutely. Have one unit take care of the expenses like the taxes, insurance. Have one unit take care of the mortgage, and just keep the other one. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Just don't use and abuse it.
Matt would like to know if you could start your journey over, how would you start?
If I had to start my journey over, I don't know if I would change anything. When I first got started, um, I really made it a point to ask every single successful person in real estate um, a lot of questions. And the most common thing that I heard was, read every book, go to every conference, buy every program, which if you want to buy our program, it's thequakbrothers.com/programs or /learn. And I took that advice, and a lot of individuals with high net worths in real estate investing, and not just with money, but the people who are genuinely good people who treated people right and had great morals and ethics, and somebody I could really identify. Basically the people that I wanted to become like, and I had about 3 or 4 people in my life who were like that when I first got started. And, I'd ask them the question, what do you think I should do? And, the most common thing was, read as much as you can, learn as much as you can. And once you obtain that knowledge, you won't need to ask me that question anymore. And so I thought that was really cool. And it was absolutely true. 4, 5, 6 years ago when I first got started, I took that advice. I read every single book, bought every single program, looked at every single YouTube channel I could do, went to every podcast, every conference, every networking event, meetup. And before you knew it, I obtained so much knowledge and networked with so many people that the opportunities just presented themselves to me, and I found ways to add value. That's my main thing, right? Learn as much as you can and look for places to add value, which would be my advice. But I wouldn't say I'd be able to change anything. I'd want to change anything ever since I got started. Yeah, if I'm to be completely honest with you.
Uh, Tama is asking, what is your opinion between a 50,000 full cash versus a 20% down payment for a $250,000 rental property?
Hmm. So $50,000 all cash or $50,000 going towards a $250,000 investment property. You know what? I don't know if I can make that decision for you because again, I don't know all the details. I don't know the logistics of the $50,000 property or the $250,000 property. But here's what I will say. I think one of the most beautiful things about real estate investing is the fact that we have the ability to leverage. We have the ability to leverage and earn income on high value real estate without needing the liquidity to provide for all of that value. I think that's tremendous. I think that's one of the reasons why people should, no matter who you are, should own real estate. Um, Not to mention that the tax benefits on a $250,000 investment property is greater than a $50,000 investment property. That's another good thing to keep in mind. So, without really knowing a whole lot of the numbers, I'd say the second one. But again, I need to know more specifics. But so far, right now, I would say the second one. And of course, it depends on the financing and different things like that.
So Top Secret Bear would like to know, do you think
Top Secret Bear strikes again. Let's do this.
do you think it's a good idea to build a primary residence, use conventional construction loan, or live there for a while and then sell or refi?
Okay, repeat the question again.
Do you think it's a good idea to build a primary residence, use conventional construction loan, live there for a while, and then sell or refi?
Okay, so the question was, Top Secret Bear asked, the situation is I'm buying a house, I'm rehabbing it with the construction loan, and then I believe the question is, should I
They're
sell?
gonna live there for a while,
Okay, they're gonna live there for a while. How
and
long?
then should they sell it or refi it?
Okay, so should they sell it or refi it? Um, how long? First off, yeah, how long are you planning on living there? I would also ask, what are the terms of the construction loan? Um,
They're building it from scratch and they're gonna live there.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, yeah, sweet. Okay, that makes total sense. So they're building it from scratch. I would say it depends on. I mean, I'd say it depends on where the market's at when you plan on moving. If it's a high dollar market and things are in high demand and the value of the supply is extremely high, I say yeah, sell it. But if it's a scenario where it's probably not beneficial for you to sell and there's not a whole lot of buyers out there with money, um, I'd say in that case, you might want to refinance, but even then, the refinance depends on the value of the home. That's where the banks would pull the money out of. Um,
It's pretty much a spec house that you live in for a year.
okay. Yeah, I would say it depends on your financial situation. Like if you're in a situation where you're in need of money, I'd say sell it. But if you're in a situation where you have other assets and you're able to rent it out and you identify a strategy where you could do something very special, then refinance it out. That's what I would do. And rent it out, especially if you get good cash flow or you want to put it on like a nightly rental space and you make a lot of money from it. I say in that case, refinance. But I'd say play it by ear and invest a lot into yourself to the point where you don't need to ask me that question when you do sell or when it gets to that time. Yeah, that's probably my best thing. I could probably, yeah, without getting too personal.
We got a question from Matt again.
Matt, all right.
So he's kind of referencing back on, you said you surrounded yourself by people that you wanted to be like.
Yes.
So obviously you had to give them value to have them
Mhm.
exchange that information. How do you add value to someone that you want to be like?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a question that a lot of people give me. It's just like, how do you network with these high level individuals when, we feel like, we have nothing to offer? And guys, I completely understand. I completely understand where you're coming from. I would say I have two perspectives on this. So, first perspective, I'm going to give from more of a transactional standpoint of more referring to the question that you asked, Matt. Imagine you have two students, right? Imagine you have, I'm sorry, you are one of the students, right? Let's say you have a student right next to you and you guys are both taking a test. And let's say the teacher tells you you're able to take it together. Now, let's say this individual is a lot smarter than you and they're like the top of its class. And let's say that you are the worst of your class. Now, if that person and you guys are both taking a 20 question test, if that person has the answers to 19 questions, but you have the answer to that last question, are you valuable to that student? Yes or no? The answer is yes, because although you may not know as much as him, and you by yourself, you only have 5% of the quiz where they have 95% of the quiz done. The fact that you have the answer to that last question you are now valuable to that individual. So my first perspective is when you're looking at that individual, figure out what's the one question that they are struggling with, right? In a test of 20 questions, they may have 19 answers, but what's that last one? What's that last answer that they need? And look to get that answer for them. The second one is look to build a relationship. You know, at the end of the day, if you're building a good relationship between you and that individual, it's not going to be transactional. That person's not going to think, "What could you do for me?" Um, so I'm connected to a lot of high net worth individuals. One of my mentors right now owned and operated and manages at one point 16,000 units of condos and apartment complexes and real estate. I got another mentor right now who does development deals, like literally 9-figure development deals in Manhattan, Chicago, Miami, right? And these guys, I just build a relationship with them. I'm not looking to do anything for them. They're not looking to do anything for me. For us, we're just friends. We just build a relationship. And I do that just by literally saying, hey, I love to take you out for coffee. I love to take you out for lunch. It'd be my honor. And I love to just hear your story. And I like to share mine. And typically, I'll meet them. We plan it out for an hour, right? We're like, all right, we'll go to Panera for between 2 or 3. And typically, what happens? We end up being there for 2-3 hours just because we're just engulfed in the conversation. We're building a relationship. We're answering, each other's questions to life. And a lot of times, guys, when I meet with these high level individuals, I talk about real estate probably 25% of the time. The rest is about life, about love, about, sports, about just things in general that regular human beings will talk about. And typically a lot of those people, they crave authentic relationships because a lot of times those people are so used to other people trying to get something from them, right? Trying to be more transactional, like what do what's in it for me? They're so used to that for them they crave an honest, authentic relationship. Yeah, so those are 2 points of views that I would ask. Are we all good? All right. Well, thanks, guys. I'm gonna go use the bathroom because I've been wanting to use the bathroom and holding it in for the last hour. But I'm gonna go. Probably TMI, but hey, you get the real me. So, thank you guys so much for spending Memorial Day with me. I hope this was a tremendous amount of value. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't, and go check out the kwakbrothers.com/learn to check out on our latest real estate investing program. So, peace out, guys. Enjoy your Memorial Day. Hope you eat a lot of burgers and hot dogs. And huge shout out to our men and women who serve in our armed forces. Today is the day we remember the sacrifices that those individuals made so that we can have the freedom to be entrepreneurs and to be real estate investors. So if you're on the line here and you are a member of the armed forces, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your service, and love you guys. I'm praying for every single one of our supporters of the Kwak Brothers family. I'll see you guys next Monday.